I'm Josh, 28, and up until about a week ago, I lived with my dad and older brother, Ben, in the same two-story house I grew up in. Not because I'm lazy, or a freeloader, or whatever other label they like to throw around, but because 3 years ago, when Mom passed, I didn't have the heart to leave my dad alone. And Ben? Well, Ben swooped in to help, which mostly meant moving back in after his second divorce, taking over my old bedroom, and letting me be the one who handled everything. Meals, bills, the yard, the hospital visits. Everything. But when people talk about being taken for granted, I don't think they picture it being this calculated. It wasn't neglect, it was dismissal. Casual cruelty wrapped in dry sarcasm and brotherly jokes that hit just a little too hard. Dad would watch us argue and say nothing. Sometimes he'd smirk, like he was proud of Ben for keeping me in check. It all came to a head on a Thursday night, over chicken and rice. I had just gotten home from a 12-hour shift, inventory deadlines, budget audits, the kind of day where your spine feels like rubber and your head buzzes like a wasp nest. I walked in to find the kitchen a mess, food left out, sink piled high, and Ben on the couch, feet up, laughing at something on his phone. My dad was in his usual chair by the window, newspaper open but unread. I didn't even say anything at first. I just started washing the dishes. Steam rising, hands in the water, scrub, rinse, stack, over and over. Then Ben called from the living room, not looking up. You're clanging those plates like a drama queen. I froze. Not because of what he says worse, but because of how easily it rolled off his tongue. How normal it was. Like I was a character in a play he didn't even like. I took a breath, turned off the water, and said, maybe if you cleaned up after yourself once in a while. And that was it. Ben snapped, here we go. You always find something. Always complaining. You only bring drama. I turned to Dad. I wasn't even looking for backup. Just a glance. A raised eyebrow. Some acknowledgement. But he just set down his paper and said, without even blinking, maybe we'd have peace if you just left. That moment, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. No plate smashed. No shouting match. Just silence. Heavy. Final. I nodded. Not out of agreement, but because something inside me just clicked off. Like a switch I didn't know existed. I walked upstairs. Packed a duffel. Laptop, charger, toiletries, 2 changes of clothes. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I just grabbed my keys, walked out the back door, and drove. Where did I go? To an old co-worker's Airbnb. He'd offered it to me once for a weekend getaway. Said it was barely used. I Venmo'd him 2 weeks rent up front. Cash. No questions. Just needed somewhere they wouldn't think to look. I turned off my location sharing. Disabled Find My iPhone. Blocked their numbers, just in case. And for 3 days, I slept. I mean actually slept. No creaking floorboards at 2 a.m. No arguments over thermostat settings. No passive-aggressive knocks when I locked the bathroom door. Just silence. By day 4, I unblocked their numbers. Not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted to know what came next. And sure enough, the messages trickled in. First from Ben, where are you? Then from Dad, grow up and stop sulking. Then silence again. Until this morning. I woke up around 9 a.m., blinking against the light streaming through unfamiliar curtains, when I noticed my phone buzzing on the nightstand. 17 missed calls. Most from Dad. A couple from Ben. One from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemails, but one text from Ben stood out. Call me. It's serious. I was staring at it, trying to decide whether to delete it or laugh, when I heard it. A knock. Not the gentle kind either. 3 heavy thuds. Then a pause. Then 3 more. I stayed frozen on the edge of the bed, heart racing. Who even knew I was here? Then another knock, followed by a voice I didn't expect to hear again so soon. Josh? I know you're in there. It was Dad, and somehow he sounded out of breath, maybe even nervous. But I didn't move, didn't speak. I just sat there, staring at the door, waiting to hear what he'd say next. He knocked again, lighter this time. Then a shuffle, like he shifted his weight or maybe glanced around to make sure no one was watching. Josh, he said, voice muffled through the door. Look, I know things got out of hand. We didn't mean. He stopped. Exhaled sharply. Just open the door, all right? We need to talk. I didn't move. My hand hovered over my phone, but I didn't touch it. The stillness of the room pressed in on me, like even the furniture was holding its breath. I waited, listening. No more knocking. Just silence. Then footsteps, slow and heavy, fading down the hallway outside. I stood up and walked to the door, not to open it, but to look through the peephole. There he was, my dad, standing in the courtyard like he didn't know what to do with himself. He glanced back at the door, then reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something, his phone. I watched him type something, then put it away and leave. A second later, my phone buzzed. A text. Just come home. Please. No punctuation. No apology. Just that one sentence that told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't here because he missed me. He was here because something went wrong. I didn't reply. Instead, I made coffee and sat at the tiny kitchen table with my laptop. I still had work responsibilities to deal with, emails piling up, reports to review, but I couldn't focus. My brain kept circling the same questions. What had changed? Why the sudden panic? Why today? By noon, the answer started revealing itself in pieces. First was a call from my boss. Not unusual. He likes quick check-ins. But this time, his voice was clipped. Hesitant. Hey, Josh, everything all right on your end? I got a weird email from someone claiming to be your father. I sat up straighter. What kind of email? He hesitated. He said you were in some kind of crisis, that you'd left the family under distress. He asked if we could freeze your direct deposit until you come home safely. I blinked. What? My boss continued. Don't worry. HR flagged it. We didn't take any action, but I thought you should know. I thanked him, hung up, and just stared at the wall. So that's what this was. Not regret. Not love. Not even concern. It was damage control. Dad had tried to cut off my money. Probably assumed I didn't have backup savings, or forgot I had a second bank account he didn't know about. He thought if he pressed the right buttons, I'd crawl back home. But he was wrong. So wrong. I hadn't said a word when they leaned on me for help. When I covered Dad's car repairs, or Ben's credit card debt, or paid off the back taxes no one wanted to admit they owed. I just did it. Quietly. Because I thought family meant showing up, no matter how thankless it felt. But this? Trying to control me with my own income? That crossed a line I didn't even know I had. By mid-afternoon, it got worse. I got a text from an unknown number. A screenshot. It was a Facebook post from Ben's account. Some people love to play the victim and make everyone else out to be the villain. Maybe if they didn't treat every conversation like a personal attack, we'd still be a family. Below it, comments from relatives started stacking up. Josh always was the sensitive one. Can't believe he just vanished. After all Dad did for him. That one made me laugh. Like they knew what Dad actually did or didn't do. I closed the post and just sat there. My blood wasn't boiling. My hands weren't shaking. I felt something worse. Numb. Tired. Like I was watching a movie I'd already seen 10 times and knew exactly how it ended. But I wasn't going to play my part this time. So I did something petty. Simple. Quiet. I logged into my cloud drive. The one where I kept backups of every receipt, every transfer, every bank statement showing how many bills I'd covered for Dad and Ben over the last 4 years. Every mortgage top-off, every car note, every Venmo to help until next payday. I'd saved it all, not out of paranoia, but because that's how I am. I don't forget. I compressed the files into a folder, labeled it Josh, the family parasite, just to amuse myself. Then I attached it in a new email. I stared at the to field, typed in one name, Aunt Sylvia. She was the only one in the family who ever seemed to see through their charm. The one who warned me at Mom's funeral, watch your back. Your brother's got a smile full of lies. I clicked send. Then I set my phone on silent. That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay in bed, watching the city lights flicker on the ceiling, wondering how long it would take before the fallout reached them. I didn't have to wonder long, because the next morning, they showed up again. But this time, it wasn't just Dad. It was Ben, and he wasn't knocking. He was pounding. The pounding was sharp and erratic, fists slamming against the door like he was trying to break through sheer will alone. I jolted upright, blanket tangled around my legs, heart immediately racing. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I recognized that rhythm. Ben never did anything subtly. His footsteps stomped like accusations, his knocks demanded attention, and his voice. Yeah, here it came. Josh, he bellowed. Open the damn door. I know you're in there. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just sat on the edge of the bed, letting the noise settle around me like fog. He was pacing now. I could hear his boots scraping against the cement outside the unit, the occasional huff of breath like he was talking to himself, trying to work up the courage to try again. You think this is funny? He shouted. You sent that stuff to Aunt Sylvia? Are you serious? You're really trying to make us look bad now. Look bad. That was it. That was all it ever was for Ben. Not the truth. Not what they'd done. Just the appearance of it. The illusion cracking. His mask slipping. He couldn't stand being seen as the problem. That was always my role, the moody one. The difficult one. The one they could blame when anything went wrong. He'd made an art form out of twisting every situation so that he came out looking clean, calm, just trying to help. I stood up slowly, still silent, and walked to the door. I didn't open it, just stood behind it. I could practically feel the heat radiating off him through the wood. Dad's freaking out, he continued. You know what you've done? He's getting calls from everyone. Aunt Sil, Uncle Rick. Even Grandpa asked what was going on. You humiliated him. A flicker of something stirred in me at that. Humiliation. That's what he was mad about. Not the truth. Not the years of gaslighting. Not the emotional trench I'd crawled through to keep things afloat. Just that someone finally noticed. Someone talked. I finally spoke, my voice low and calm. I didn't lie. He paused, then scoffed. You think that makes it better? You're airing our dirty laundry? That's betrayal, Josh. I clenched my jaw. No. Betrayal is using someone for years, treating them like garbage, and then trying to shut down their bank account when they finally walk away. There was a beat of silence. Then his tone shifted, less rage, more smug. You really think you're so important, huh? You think the family's gonna just take your side? That anyone's gonna care? I didn't answer. He knocked again, softer this time. Just come outside, man. Let's talk. I backed away from the door and sat down on the edge of the couch, phone in hand, still not replying. I knew his game. Wear me down, play reasonable, twist the narrative. He'd done it too many times. The knocking stopped. I heard retreating footsteps. A car door slamming shut. An engine starting. But this wasn't over. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Aunt Sylvia. Honey, I just got off the phone with your dad. He's furious. Says you're having a breakdown. That you've been unstable for months. I told him if that were true, you wouldn't have organized his insurance payments, fixed the leak in his attic, or managed Ben's tax mess. I don't believe a word he's saying. Just checking in, are you okay? I stared at that message for a long time. That one paragraph did more for me than any conversation with my father ever had. I typed back, I'm safe, and I'm done playing their game. Thank you for believing me. She replied instantly. Always. Let me know if you need a lawyer, by the way, or if they keep harassing you. I have names. The rest of the day passed in a daze. I didn't check social media, didn't respond to more texts, but I could feel the chaos spinning behind the scenes. Relatives whispering, messages flying back and forth. The cracks in the foundation I'd spent years holding together were finally showing, and I wasn't the one falling through. By sunset, I got a final message that made me set my phone down and just stare at the wall in disbelief. It was from my father. Josh, enough is enough. You're being cruel. You've embarrassed this family. If you come back tonight and apologize, we'll forget this happened. But if you don't expect to be welcomed back again. Welcome back? That was rich. Welcome back to what? The house where I was treated like furniture? The dynamic where Ben's messes were my fault? The reality where my pain was a punchline? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop again, and this time, I pulled up the shared document I'd been slowly piecing together over the last year. It wasn't just receipts anymore. It was a full log, dated entries, quotes, conversations I remembered word for word. A private history of every manipulation, every jab disguised as a joke, every time they'd gaslit me into believing I was the problem. I hadn't known what I was saving it for. Until now. This wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. It was about finally seeing it. Laying it bare. Owning the truth that I'd been forced to swallow for years. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't selfish. I wasn't unstable. I was just done. I was done being the scapegoat for a family that fed on silence. And then, just as I was about to shut the laptop, another knock came. But it wasn't at my door. It was at the window. A shadow moved across the glass. Not pounding. Not yelling. Just standing there. Watching. And my heart froze. Because I knew that silhouette. It wasn't Dad. It wasn't Ben. It was someone else entirely. Someone I hadn't spoken to in almost 4 years. And suddenly, everything I thought I understood about what was going on began to unravel. It took me a few seconds to fully register the face outside my window. The shadow leaned closer under the amber glow of the porch light, and a chill went through me that had nothing to do with the evening air conditioning. It was my cousin, Caleb. The last time I saw Caleb, it was at Mom's funeral. He'd hugged me tightly, whispered, "You don't deserve this," and then disappeared back into the city with the rest of our so-called extended family. We hadn't spoken since. He wasn't the type to keep up with birthday texts or family updates, but in that silence, he'd become one of the few people I actually respected. Because he never played into the family's lies. He didn't pretend. He saw everything for what it was and walked away. And now here he was, on my doorstep, like a ghost from a part of me I hadn't fully processed. I walked to the window and slowly raised the blind. He didn't smile, just lifted a hand in a small wave, like he was testing if I'd still acknowledge him. I opened the door a crack, my voice tight with confusion. "What are you doing here?" He let out a breath, relieved. "Hey man, can I come in? Just for a second." I hesitated, then opened the door wider. Caleb stepped in, looking older, more tired than I remembered. Slightly disheveled in that way that said he'd driven without stopping, his bag still slung over one shoulder, hoodie wrinkled, eyes rimmed with fatigue. "I heard what happened," he said, gently. "Sylvia called me. Said things blew up." I raised an eyebrow. "And you drove 4 hours for that?" He gave a dry smile. "She told me where you were. Said you might need someone who actually gets it." I sat down on the couch. Caleb dropped his bag by the door and followed, his tone quieter now. "Look, I'm not here to tell you what to do or how to fix it. I know you're not looking for that. I needed to see you with my own eyes. Because I've been where you are, Josh. I know what it's like when the people you love most convince you you're the villain in your own story." I said nothing. He continued, voice soft but steady. "My dad used to say I was too sensitive. Every time I spoke up, he'd twist it until it sounded like I was overreacting. Gaslighting, manipulation, emotional blackmail. It wasn't just occasional. It was the family dynamic. And no one else saw it. Until I left. And even then, they said I abandoned them." He met my eyes. "But you didn't abandon anyone, Josh. You escaped. And you were brave enough to do it without burning the house down behind you." That nearly undid me. My throat tightened, and I swallowed the lump that had been sitting there all day. Caleb leaned forward. "I saw Ben's post. The comments. The stuff your dad's been saying. They're scared now. You understand that, right? They lost control. You were the glue, the banker, the caretaker, the emotional punching bag. And when you stopped playing your role, they panicked. Then why do I still feel like I did something wrong?" I asked quietly, like I left them to drown. Caleb smiled sadly. "Because you're still healing. You spent years being conditioned to equate your existence with utility. So now, when you stop being useful, you feel like you're being cruel. But that's not love, Josh. That's programming." I didn't realize I was crying until I felt it on my hand. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something folded, a letter. "Before I left the family for good," he said, "I wrote this to myself. A reminder. Something to read every time I felt like caving. I want you to have it." I opened it slowly. Just 3 lines. "You are not their servant. You are not their scapegoat. You are not broken." We sat in silence for a while after that. He didn't ask for details. Didn't pry. Just let me sit with it. And that was exactly what I needed. When Caleb finally stood up to leave, he gripped my shoulder. "Whatever you decide to do next, whether you go no contact or try to rebuild on your terms, do it because you choose it, not because you're guilted into it." I nodded. "Thank you. Seriously." He smiled. "Hey, I brought you donuts. I know you stress-eat powdered sugar." He left them on the counter, then walked out without another word. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The sky was still pale, and the world hadn't started buzzing yet. I made coffee, stood at the window, and looked out at the city with a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. I opened my laptop and wrote an email to my father. Not an apology, not a cry for reconciliation, just the truth. Subject: family. "Dad, you told me I only bring drama, that your life would be more peaceful without me. So I gave you exactly what you asked for. But let me be clear, I am not your villain. For years, I paid your bills, managed your paperwork, cleaned up after Ben, and swallowed every insult you both threw at me. I stayed when others would have run. I stayed because I thought love meant loyalty, no matter how painful it got. But I realize now that staying wasn't love. It was survival. You don't get to rewrite the story now that I've stopped bleeding for you. You don't get to call it betrayal when I finally chose myself. If you're embarrassed, that's not my fault. That's your reflection in the mirror. I won't be coming back. I won't be silenced. I won't keep your secrets to protect your pride. I hope one day you look around that quiet house and realize peace doesn't come from pushing people away. It comes from treating them like they matter. Goodbye, Josh. I didn't wait for a reply. Instead, I packed my things, locked the Airbnb behind me, and moved into the small apartment I'd put a deposit on a week earlier. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even Caleb. But I'd been planning this in the back of my mind for months, even before that dinner where everything boiled over. And you know what? The silence felt different here. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't tense. It was freeing. No footsteps stomping upstairs. No accusations waiting around every corner. Just me, a desk, a bed, a view, and peace. It took a few more days before the ripple effect stopped. Aunt Sylvia texted me updates. Ben had deleted his Facebook post. Dad hadn't returned anyone's calls. Some of the cousins had messaged her, confused. A few took sides. A few didn't. But I didn't care anymore. I wasn't looking for validation. I'd already found something better. Clarity. The next weekend, Caleb came back. We built a small bookshelf, ordered Thai food, and watched a movie like we used to when we were kids. No drama. No manipulation. Just connection. And as the credits rolled, he nudged me and said, "You know, starting over doesn't mean you failed. It just means you finally chose the right chapter." And for the first time in years, I believed it. So no, I didn't go back. I didn't unblock their numbers. I didn't make peace by letting them off the hook. But I did find peace on my own terms. And I never looked back.